What makes Disney Disney? Us, the people. And we only sell one thing. We sell an emotion that people desire is the only thing that we sell.
Welcome to the Veterinary Blueprint Podcast, brought to you by Butler Vet Insurance, hosted by Bill Butler. The Veterinary Blueprint Podcast is for veterinarians and practice managers who are looking to learn about working on their practice instead of in their practice. Each episode, we will bring you successful, proven blueprints from others both inside and outside the veterinary industry. Welcome to today's episode.
Welcome to this episode of the Veterinary Blueprints Podcast. My name is Bill Butler, and I'm your host for this episode. And again, Veterinary Blueprints Podcast is a podcast where we bring business entrepreneurship to the veterinary community and business insights. And I could not be more excited for this episode of the podcast to bring our guests to you. I happened to meet this gentleman at an industry mastermind event. I was out working on myself in self-improvement, and I was meeting with a number of insurance agents earlier this year, and I had the privilege of hearing our guest speak, and had the opportunity to hear him again this week. And we're coming to you from a live remote in San Diego. So if you hear some background noise in this episode, we are close to the Naval Air Station on Coronado. So you might hear some jets in the background, but we are in sunny San Diego. And our guest actually just got off the stage as a keynote for the event I was attending, and I knew that I had to bring him to the veterinary community. I would like to call this gentleman my friend now. We've had the opportunity to connect on a number of occasions, and he is just a really genuine, great guy. And I'll let him tell his story because he's got a great one and share some of his insights. But his name is Christos Provistalis, and he is just a really genuine and kind-hearted person. So welcome to the episode, Christos.
Thank you for having me, Bill.
Awesome. So for those of our guests, for those of our listeners today, why don't you just kind of share a little bit about who you are and what you're doing now, and then how you came to be a speaker and a thought leader for business owners and industry leaders.
So, Bill, I'm a former guest service manager for the Walt Disney Company, and I had the pleasure of working at their flagship resort for some years in Orlando, Florida. And there was one day that made me really realize what my purpose there was and helped me create my future. I had an executive come into my restaurant. I was a restaurant guest service manager, and he looked at me and said, "Christos, what do you sell?" And I really thought, I was like, man, you can't read the menu. So I just turned around and I started firing off everything that we sold. And he said, "Christos, I can read the menu. What do we sell as a company?" And I still didn't get him. And I just started saying theme park tickets, hotel rooms, and shirts. And he's like, "Christos, that's not what we sell." And then he asked me, "What does Nike sell?" I go, "They sell sneakers." He goes, "That's not what they sell. What does Rolex sell?" And I said, "Watches." He's like, "That's not what they sell." He goes, "Christos, anybody can duplicate Disney. Granted, you would need a lot of money. In Orlando, they're 46 square miles. But anybody could."
So you need a lot of money and land.
But he's like, in all reality, he goes, "We don't have the best theme parks. We don't have the best resorts. We don't have the best restaurants." He goes, "What makes Disney Disney?" And I was like, he goes, "Us, the people. And we only sell one thing. We sell an emotion that people desire is the only thing that we sell." And he goes, "Everything you see around us, those are our props that we use." And he goes, "I asked you what Nike sells. You said sneakers." He goes, "They sell motivation and inspiration is what they sell." I asked you what Rolex sells. You don't see their commercials say, "We have the best metal. Check out this."
Our watches keep time like nobody else's business.
Our time is more accurate than anyone's. You see a well-dressed person coming out of a very expensive car. They sell status and success. But he goes, "We're lucky. We sell the most desired human emotion that there actually is. We sell the emotion of happiness." And when you know and understand what your company sells, your whole business actually changes. And when you know and understand what you actually sell, your job is to evoke the emotion you want your client to feel. And that bill made me realize that a lot of companies focus on stuff they don't actually sell, because it's an emotion that a company sells through their product.
Yeah. You just got done speaking to a room full of business professionals. I really appreciate that you started with that and shared that. Your family was in the restaurant business, is in the restaurant business, and you talk about that, and you say, we don't sell pizzas. What do you sell at the restaurant?
We ended up finding out after years that we actually sell a sense of family is what we sell at our restaurant.
Family. And, it's going to be different for every restaurant, right?
Correct.
Hey, we sell a party and a good time if you're a bar.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
We sell the best party and good time in a bar. But, it's that interesting, that piece that I wanted to share today with our veterinary blueprints community was it's not just pet services that they sell or animal health. It's you have to figure out what you sell. And the message that you brought to the professionals that you spoke with today, that I had the privilege of sitting in for the second time hearing you speak, was that connection is energy. And that as an insurance professional, somebody in a white collar business, right? Like, I don't sell insurance products. I sell safety and security, or I sell peace of mind. If I think I just sell a piece of paper that talks about all the things and all the benefits and features that insurance policy gives, I can make some money doing that, but I'm not going to have that connection. So why don't you talk about the connection as energy as peace? Because that was very interesting for me to hear.
A lot of people need to understand how we connect as human beings. And the definition of human connection is that it's an energy. And that energy is formed between people when they feel seen, when they feel heard, when they feel valued, and when they feel understood. And when those things happen, you create a bond, whether you know it or don't know it. And a lot of companies need to create a better connection with their customers and their employees.
Yeah, the employee piece, I think, for the veterinary community is really key. And that was why I wanted to talk about the connection and energy and connection is energy piece, because when you talk today, you mentioned that when you have a bond or emotional connection with someone, you're willing to overlook issues or problems, right? You talked about at Disney, right? You tell a story about Cinderella.
So I was working at one of their restaurants, and it was a table service restaurant at the Grand Floridian, directly right next to Magic Kingdom. And there was a couple from Michigan that came in with a little girl, and the little girl was maybe 6 or 7 years old. She was wearing Cinderella's dress. It was 8 a.m. She ordered chocolate milk. She spilled the chocolate milk all over herself, and she was devastated that Cinderella's not going to want to see her.
Why would Cinderella want to see a little girl covered in chocolate milk, right? That was in her mind.
Yeah.
My day at Disney is ruined. I've been thinking about this day for months.
Of course. So I, went in my office. I sent a text message to all my friends that are leaders, and I said, "Who's with Cinderella right now? I need some help." And one of my friends said, "I'm with her." I said, "Can you please, have her handler, say, have her help me?" 30 seconds. I went to Emily's table. I slid my cell phone right in front of her, and here comes a FaceTime call from Cinderella. And Emily, was the little girl's name, answered it, and I said, "Emily, do you know Cinderella?" And she's like, "No." And I go, "Well, here's Cinderella." And Cinderella's like, "Hi, Emily. It's Cinderella. I just want to let you know that I spilled chocolate milk all over myself today as well. You know what? Just go upstairs, change, and I'll see you tonight for dinner." And then Emily said, "Well, okay," and just hung up on her,
It completely changed the conversation.
Oh, yeah, Emily was back to, Emily was fine.
Yeah, Emily's fine.
And then her parents started crying. And, I can't just pull Mickey and Minnie out of my pockets for everybody. I'm like, oh, man, one party's this, and now I got to take care of them. But the point that I was making is, so if Emily and her parents left my restaurant and went to the ticket and transportation center and somebody there gave them less than perfect service when they got their tickets, they wouldn't have noticed. And when they went next door, they went inside the park and purchased a bottle of water, and somebody gave them less than perfect service, they wouldn't have noticed. because the more someone is emotionally invested in you, the less critical and less objectively observant they become about you. And the perfect example, when I use that, some people are like, and I said, when you get married, or I'm not married, when you fall in love. When you fall in love, you have blinders on until somebody says, hey, listen, this person that you're dating is wacko. And then you go, what?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
She's amazing. It's the same thing personally as it is professionally. Yeah. And I use this example. Let's just say you send a text message or an email to your client that could be misconstrued, because text and emails, they lack emotion. It doesn't matter if you put a little smiley face or anything like that. They still lack emotion, and they have no tone in there. So if they're emotionally invested in you and you send them something like that could be misconstrued, they won't. They'll accept that as something positive. They really won't, because they're emotionally invested in you. So sometimes they're very long. So the 73855, it's a rule of communication is what it is. And it basically states that only 7% of our communication between human beings is verbal.
So only 7% of what our communication with everyone else in the world is what we're saying.
And you would think it's like 60, 70, or 80.
The words that we're saying.
Yeah, years ago when I learned this, I was like, there's no way. I'm like, I thought all communication is us talking. And the 38% is tone and pitch of our voice. And then 55% is our body.
You're doing a great job, Christos. So
exactly. Your tone is everything, and
yep.
Usually the higher pitch your tone is in pitch, the better the service that you're giving. And we do that naturally, right? We do that without wanting to. I know there's some people that I know.
We don't sing happy birthday in a low...
Correct. Happy
birthday.
We don't do that, right? We
get all excited and we sing it high and happy.
Absolutely. But one thing that we need to pay attention to is the 38 and the 55% has to always substantiate the 7.
So what was so we didn't talk about 55, so 55
body language.
Body language.
Yes. So, our body.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This episode of the Veterinary Blueprint Podcast is sponsored by Butler Vet Insurance. Being an insurance agent at Butler Vet Insurance, I've seen firsthand the difficulties veterinarians face insuring their practices. But did you know that we wrote the book on veterinary insurance? It's called Protecting Your Veterinary Practice, Insider Insurance Secrets Every Veterinarian Must Know. It's not just a book, it's a comprehensive guide that speaks to the unique challenges and insurance solutions for the veterinary community. With over 20 years' experience from cyber liability to business auto and workers' compensation, our aim at Butler Vet Insurance is to reduce the stress of insurance for those dedicated to animal care. If you're a veterinary practice owner or manager and looking for some guidance on your insurance, follow our insurance blueprint. Discover the Butler Vet Insurance difference. And together, let's put the pieces of the puzzle together. Butler Vet Insurance, reducing the stress of insurance. We're visual people, right? As humans.
And our body reacts immediately, right? So our body, so we're in the subconscious, right? You just do things without knowing because our subconscious lives in the now. It doesn't think.
So if you've got a terrible poker face,
you just,
your facial tone, your facial reaction. You talked about smiling. You told the story about speaking at a conference. And if it's a natural smile, you've got crow's feet. Now, usually we record the episodes on video as well as, but because we're doing a remote, you can't see what we're doing right now. But if you have a genuine natural smile, it should show crow's feet. And you were talking about, you were speaking at a convention where everyone had
Botox. Like 90% of the people had Botox in their face, and while I was talking, everybody just looked at each other and was like, "Can you see me? Can you see it? Can you see it?"
Am I smiling?
And I was like, "What are they talking about?" And then everyone just started laughing, having a great time, and I had no idea. And then someone said, "Almost everyone in this room has had Botox, so we can't do any of those things."
See the crow's feet. But the point is, if you're giving away what your tone and pitch of your voice and your body language and what your body language is conveying needs to match that 7% of the words you're saying. And if there's incongruence, if the words you're saying doesn't match the tone and pitch of your voice and the body language, people are going to catch that right away.
Absolutely. Sometimes we do that without wanting to. We contradict the 7 instead of substantiate.
This is so hard for me. People walk around. I was in the military for 12 years. Some of our listeners know that. Very serious all the time. And I look serious all the time. And people say, "What's the matter, Bill? Is everything okay?" And I have this very scowl. Like if I furrow my brow and I scowl and I'm looking, I say, "Everything's fine." What are you asking me? My tone and pitch are low and angry. Everything's fine. What I'm saying is everything's fine, but my tone and pitch and my body language are not showing that. And so when we're talking with our team and we're talking with our clients, our tone and pitch and our body language need to match the words we're saying.
Absolutely, it does, because a lot of times we naturally do that. And even though we're saying something, our tone and pitch is not telling you that.
That's right.
And especially if it's over the phone, all you have is your 38% and your 7. You don't have the 55, so make sure
that's why the tone and pitch is even more important. And that
so important.
Gotcha.
So important.
So you talked about customers at Disney, and that was a very interesting piece as well. And you told a story about customers and guests. And guests can be any host of things. If you think about a veterinary practice, they're your clients. They're also your team members. And just give the difference between a customer and a guest at Disney. That was fascinating.
When I first started working at Disney as a leader, the facilitator asked me in my class, said, "Christos, how do you treat a guest?" And I said, "A guest? Like a guest at my house?" They're like, "Yeah, just a guest." And I go, "Well, if I have a guest at home, I want to make sure they have their favorite beers or their favorite drinks, their favorite snacks, their favorite food. I want to make sure they're comfortable. I want to make sure they're happy there. I'm going to make sure they're they need anything possible." And I gave just a whole bunch of list of stuff. And he's like, "Oh, so how would you take care of your customer?" And I was like, "Well, I just want to make sure that, the customer, is happy and just gets what they need." And he's like, "You just gave me a list of 6 things that you would do for your guest and a couple things for your customer." And he goes, "Here at Disney, our customers are our guest. So the way you just described your guest and what you would do for them, that's what we do for our guest." And that alone just made me just shift my mindset a little bit as to just how to think.
Well, and when we convey that back to Emily, and you kind of relayed this during the story of Emily, right? Like all you did was send a text out to 6 people saying, hey, who's with Cinderella right now? Now, number one, being in a job where you get to send a text with who's with Cinderella right now. That's just, I mean, I don't get to do that. So, but who's with Cinderella? And you get a text message back and you set up the FaceTime and then Cinderella's in the thing. Now, Emily, as you kind of tell the longer version of this story, Emily couldn't have really cared much after she saw Cinderella and like, she's on with her day. I'm going to go change and woohoo, I'm at Disney.
She hung up on her.
That's right.
Literally.
She hung up on Cinderella. But the parents, that was where you developed the emotional connection. Yeah. And you said over the course of your career at Disney, you've had people write letters up to executive level and connection and thanking you and trying to tip you at different spots because of just the very small, simple things you did. And a lot of these are not. So if it's about being present in what we're doing to see and identify the opportunity, because the smallest things sometimes matter the most.
Just be thoughtful and intentional.
That's right. You did mention that as well, is being intentional and not just being so focused with blinders that we're worried about ourselves. And I think in today's society, it's so easy just to focus on us. The sessions that we were in, you've been here for the whole conference. Everyone's listening to that radio station, WIIFM, What's in It for Me? And our team is listening to that radio station, What's in It for Me? Our guests, if you're at Disney, are thinking about what's in it for me? How is this going to impact me? And as leaders in our role of what we're doing, we have to not listen to that. We have to purposely we're always going to listen to that radio station, but probably turn the volume down on that radio station and be intentional about what we're listening to and think about how we can impact other people's lives and build connection. Because that connection, as you talked about, people will let some things slide that they might not let slide, but also build deeper connections so you've got really a tribe of people who are all working the same path and passionate clients. I mean, how loyal are the customers at Disney?
They're very loyal.
I mean, they come back year after year after year.
Absolutely.
Cruises. We're in San Diego, and we had a Disney cruise ship come in. The
Magic, yeah.
The Magic, and it blew the horn. It blew the Disney theme
as it goes. I've never heard that.
But everyone sees Mickey Mouse, and they know what that is, and it evokes happiness. So, kind of tying it into your overall message that you presented to the group was, what do you sell? You ended with what you sold, and I'm going to read the quote that you ended with. And so, I think as a veterinary practice, number one, you have to figure out what you sell to your clients. You have to figure out what you sell to your team. But I'd like you to explain what you mean by this, because you really hit this home. You said, touch your customers on such a level that your competition has no understanding of it. They don't even speak the same language. What does that mean to you? That's your quote, but when you say that from the stage and you say, and you're teaching on this, what do you mean by that?
So it's not necessarily about the product or the service that you sell. It has to do with how you make your customers feel. It doesn't matter if you're selling bricks, if you're selling cars, if you're selling tables, if you're selling veterinary services. It's how you make your customers feel in everything. We go to certain places, your favorite restaurant or your favorite this, your favorite, for a certain reason. So when I said that, be so intentional and thoughtful with your customers. Do things for them. Understand their personal life. If you can be involved in their personal life, meaning knowing what's going on, sending a card, doing something for them, especially in their time of need, touching them on such a deep level. Like, not just, hey, listen, here's a free soda while you sit here waiting for... That's not service, right? That's not service. How are you going to touch them that they tell their friends, right? One of the purposes of a business is to create a customer that creates customers. Yeah. One of your purposes.
Yep.
Because your customer talking about you, they have no skin in the game. They're just...
That can also go for team members, right? Like, you want your team members
Absolutely.
So loyal and passionate about working for you that their friends are coming to, like, hey, I work for the best veterinary practice in the Twin Cities metro area or the state of Minnesota or the state
Absolutely.
of Wisconsin.
So your number one customer is your employee.
Yeah,
That's your number one customer. So everything that I talked on stage, everything that I talk about, you remove the word customer and you put employee, it's the same values, it's the same points.
It's the same intentionality,
It's the
right?
same intentionality. You know, how do you make your own people that work for you feel? Yes, salary's great. You can ask him, well, what could be better here? Oh, I could get paid more. Everyone says that. But do they feel important? Do they feel special? Like I mentioned to you, one of the 6 human needs we all have is the need to feel significant.
That's right.
Whether you can admit it or you can't, it is. Who doesn't want to feel? You asked me to be on this podcast.
You said feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling loved, and feeling significant. And I'm kind of glumping some things together there, but I think that's a theme of people just want to feel like they belong somewhere.
Of course, and
that's part of that tribe, right? Like we're tribal people. I mean, it goes way back. We're not a solitary deal. The last 3 days together, I mean, we've shared some meals. It's all this together. People aren't walking around alone at this conference. There's always a group of 3, 4, 5 people. I think the smallest dinner I had was the first night here with my wife. Otherwise, it's like a group of 8 people going to dinner. And how much fun are we having doing that?
That's
that
time.
Culture.
So, back to the significance, like you asked me to be on this podcast. I'm excited to be on this, like it makes me feel great. It makes me feel special to be on it. I love it and I don't take it for granted. Yeah. I was telling a couple of my friends, I'm like, I'm going to be on this vet podcast. I'm like, I've never done this before. Even
different. Walking into the room, right? We're recording this in my hotel room and I got the whole setup and the microphones and the full thing.
Yeah.
And you walked in, you kind of stopped. You said, holy cow, you got the whole professional setup here. And it's like,
we do.
But that's how can you translate that to your team? How can you translate that to your customers? How can you translate that to what you're doing? And what you're doing in your personal life at home. If your spouse doesn't feel significant, they're going to identify every issue and problem. But if they feel significant and they feel loved, Bill doesn't throw his dirty clothes down the laundry chute, or Shannon doesn't park her car in the garage the right way. I can overlook that because she's such a great person. I love her so much, right? And so how do you translate that to your professional life, to your personal life, to your team? You got very emotional on stage a couple times because this is a very emotional. I don't think there's a dry in the room. We were going down. Actually, I know one person like, I didn't cry, but
there's always one.
There's always one who doesn't cry. But for those people who had heard you speak before, they were prepared. And I told Shannon, my wife, because she's here on this trip, and I said, you should bring some tissues down. Make sure you have some. She said, why? Why do I need tissues? I'm gonna. But that's the part of emotion, right? We're evoking emotion versus just giving rote information, facts, and figures. And the one story that you told that I think really had a lot of impact with the audience was the story of your restaurant. I'm just going to share a little bit of this, but your restaurant you did for births and funerals. You would show up at somebody's house. You were kind of your brother was the back office, so the back of house. He was responsible for the restaurant stuff, and you were kind of the community engagement guy. How can we be involved in the community? How can we be involved in people's lives? Taking that experience at Disney, right? And the funeral piece. Why don't you just describe what you did as a restaurant? So as a restaurant, it was easy for you to do this because it was just what you did every day, but the impact it had. And if you wouldn't mind sharing that story, I think we'll kind of wrap up with this. In the course of your daily service, it may feel normal to you to do something in the normal course of service, but how it impacts people's lives is so unique and special.
So one thing that we would do, and it's tough to do it for everyone because I wouldn't be able to pay attention to everyone, but I would follow our social media, all the people that we're connected to our restaurant. We love every single one of our customers because without them we have a space with restaurant equipment and a phone that doesn't ring.
And a lot of pizza dough.
And so one thing that I'd like to do is when times of just really big emotional parts of people's lives that like having a baby, right? Like I would love to try to always call either their parent or their brother and be like, hey, listen, when are they coming home? I'd love to meet them at your house with their favorite pizza and a couple of days worth of food, just so they can have, some food to eat the next couple of days instead of having to eat junk food or whatever the case may be. And when somebody would pass away, we would pay attention. Like I said, I couldn't get to everyone. If I saw it, I would call.
But you were intentional and you did what you could, right?
Absolutely.
Yep, that's the intentionality.
And I'd call somebody and I'd say, hey, listen, I'm sorry to hear that your partner or your sister or someone passed. You're expecting people at your house. Can we stop by and pay our respects? Yeah. How many people are you expecting? 30, 40, 50? Well, we're going to bring food for everyone, just so you can be with them, and my family will feed them. And I never really thought anything of it, right? I really didn't. We're just cooking pizza and pasta.
We do this every day.
It's nothing. And these people just lost someone in their family. I'm just cooking food for 40 people to drop it off. Right? It's literally nothing, right? And then a few days before my parents were planning on retiring and moving down south, my dad unexpectedly passed away. And we had to close our restaurant for the first time without like it being a vacation. And what our neighbors, our customers, our friends, what they did, they filled our house with food and drinks and gifts and cards. I mean, a lot of stuff. And for the first time, I looked at my mom, my brother, and I go, is that how they feel?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because
we thought we were just delivering pizzas and food.
That's all it was to us.
You're just
and then I was like, oh my God, now I know the impact we have on them. And that's why our little pizzeria is so busy.
I mean, you told the story about they had the best pizza is in Connecticut.
Best, like a contest, yeah.
The best, and you came out top 3.
Yeah,
in the entire state of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
You had people all over the place.
Yeah, just voting for
you guys because you had such raving fans, because you had built such deep, meaningful, emotional connections to the community, to your customers, to the community, and this happened after your father passed away.
Yes, it happened this year.
It happened this year, and you said that when you were in the top 4 is like the Sweet 16. They started with 800, and then they were down. And when you got to the top 4, the TV station came and interviewed your mom, and it was like she was so joyful, and it was really
it was nice. It was the happiest we saw her since our dad passed away. Like she was, having a camera crew and these anchors that you normally see at 6:00 on the TV, hanging out with us and eating some good food. I mean, it was amazing. And at the end of the day, do we have like the best pizza in Connecticut? Maybe. I don't know. But it really has nothing to do with the pizza, Bill.
Yeah,
like,
and that's the point, right? Like
it almost has nothing to do with the product. I can't tell you how many people when they come in, when my mom was working in the front of the restaurant, how they'd call her mom. 10-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 80-year-olds. Why are they calling her mom? Do they not have one? Do they have a bad relationship with one? Do they miss them? We don't know, right? Yeah. So we sell a sense of family at our place. Through food.
Sure.
It's
the vehicle, but that's not.
Yeah, we don't sell food.
Yeah.
We sell a sense of family through food. And a lot of companies need to know and understand what they actually sell, not what they think they sell.
Yeah. And I think, for my industry, you're out here, this is for an insurance event. That's the industry I'm in. But you spoke to 3 other groups out here prior to the meeting that you were at, because I think there's such a hunger in today's society to figure out how we can connect with people. And we're so isolated on our devices, and we're in our own silos, and our team members show up and they're on their device. I mean, it's the world we're in right now. People are walking down the street zoned out, looking at their phone, and building a deep emotional connections with people is something that I think was done a lot in the past, probably, and we've gotten away from. And it's somehow unique But, there's other theme parks. There's Six Flags. There's all these things. But when you talk about theme parks, I mean, Disney's the top of the list because Six Flags doesn't sell happiness. Disney sells happiness. And so how do you set yourself apart as a business and figuring out what you sell? And I think figuring out as a veterinary practice, what's your product or service? It's not veterinary services, it's what? And that was the question you left us with is what do you sell? And so if you were going to say something to a veterinary practice, what right now, or, trying to figure that out, what would you say to them?
I would say you need to really look within deep in your company and understand why are people coming to you, because other companies offer the same service, but why are they really coming to you? What emotion do you evoke from your customers? Figure out what you actually sell. And every vet practice might sell something different.
Sure.
Might sell confidence in their services. Might sell a sense of family. Might sell something else. But you don't sell veterinary services.
Yeah. Just like Nike doesn't sell shoes and Rolex doesn't sell watches.
Correct. They don't. They sell something through that product or service. So it's really important for any company, especially vet. You're dealing with, especially the people that don't have children that have pets. Mm-hmm. Their pets are their everything.
Absolutely.
Right? So they're everything. So I think it's really, really important to know and understand what emotion you want to evoke from your customers that are bringing in their children, basically, to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Their family. They're bringing their family to 100%.
you. 100%.
Yeah. I know my little buddy Louie is my cat at home. Mm-hmm. And whenever we bring him to the vet, he's my little buddy Louie. I'm bringing my wife and I don't have kids. Mm-hmm. So we're bringing Louie to the vet. Well, Christos, I've really been looking forward to having you on this podcast. I lugged my microphones and everything all the way out here to San Diego, and I was so excited to have you on. For those people who want to connect with you after this podcast, hearing this podcast, where can they find Christos online?
Oh, they can follow me on Facebook and Instagram on just my name, just Christos Provistalis. And if they want to contact me for anything, my website is christosspeaks.com.
That's pretty complicated, christosspeaks.com. So we'll have all that in the show notes for you. Man, since meeting you in Utah earlier this year, we've connected. It's been so much fun. I was looking forward to seeing you again here out in San Diego, and I'm so grateful to have you on the podcast.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
We're looking out the balcony at the beautiful view. Beautiful view of San Diego. Well, as always, thanks for listening. Make sure to like, click, and review this episode. Share it with your friends. It helps with all the algorithms, and we just love to get this message of business entrepreneurship and business ideas out to the veterinary community. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Veterinary Blueprints podcast. I'm your host, Bill Butler, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Veterinary Blueprints. If you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions for an episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at bill@butlervetinsurance.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you could do me a huge favor, it helps with the algorithm. If you can like, share, or comment on the post, leave a review, I would love it. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.